But I had given up. Like, I gave up. And I basically told God right then, I said, if there's any way out of this, like, I'll tell everybody this story.
Anthony Lerew was a professional baseball player who got sucked into a life of recklessness as alcohol took control of his life. It was at his lowest, as he was faced with nearly losing his leg after an alcohol-induced accident, that God broke in and showed him the way home. Anthony is now a different person, and in today's conversation, he shares his story with us. Welcome to A Stronger Faith, a podcast that places you in the heart of the experiences that changed people's faith and understanding of God. I'm your host, Stacy McCants, and we're excited to begin our third year of this work of sharing the experiences of everyday people that profoundly point to the truth of the presence of God in our world. We are so grateful for the nearly 70 people who have already graciously shared the way God broke into their lives by being guests with us. We're also thankful for the many listeners who have reached out to us to tell us of how God has used these conversations to shape their faith. All of it is truly answers to our daily prayers, and it's awesome to witness. Today, we kick off 2023 on the road as God has called us for so much of the first part of this year. Anthony Lerew was a talented professional baseball player that let the world influence him toward his own destruction. But in his darkest hours, when God broke in to save him, Anthony reached toward heaven and now has a story to tell. Please meet Anthony Lerew. Anthony Lerew, I had the great fortune of meeting you and your wife Tara and your family. I think you had most of them there. Just a couple of months ago, we were both speaking at an organization that commits themselves to being in the business of drawing people closer to God, and we're both blessed to be able to do that. And our paths crossed in that time, and I had a chance to hear you talk about sort of your journey of faith, and I knew then, I was like, okay, well, there you go. This is maybe the main reason I'm here, is to meet this guy and talk with him further about the presence of God in his life. And so in a short amount of time, we've gotten together. We are actually, for those who listen and know that most of what we do is based out of Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I am in Auburn, Alabama today.
Yes, you are.
and it's okay so far. So anyway, Anthony, man, I appreciate you taking some time out and carving some time to get together with me.
Yeah, Stacy, I really appreciate you inviting me on to be able to share.
Well, and I heard, I was listening closely when you were talking, and I was like, okay, when was the moment? When was did he have a moment? Did he have a time where he felt like a transformation happened? And it was, and it happened, and I knew then. But you think about your story. Oh, and we also have the good fortune of your wife is hanging out with us too.
Yes,
she has chosen not to be mic'd up, and but every time that I've seen you speak on video or otherwise, she's somewhere in the area. She is a part of you and a big part of you. And so Tara, I'm thankful that you're here. So you want to pipe in over there anytime you want to, you go right ahead, take pictures, anything you want to do. But anyway, I'm glad you're here with us too.
Yeah, she's definitely my better half for sure.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. So anyway,
yeah.
So here, starting off, I mean, you're from Pennsylvania, and
Yep.
You're a big guy. You can tell you're an athlete, and I think you've been given a gift. Talking to you, were a high school sports star, and I think you played at most of the sports, big sports at least anyway. But from my understanding, you had offers from Penn State in football.
Yes, I did. Yeah,
and that wasn't the route you wanted to go. I think you had a football and baseball offer.
Yep. So I played football in high school, and baseball and basketball until 10th grade, and then I just focused on football and baseball. But I was all-state punter, and I was really good quarterback and played outfield and was a really good hitter. Not much of a pitcher, which is what I got drafted as, but I threw hard.
You didn't pitch much in high school?
I think I threw like 40 innings. Yeah.
And you got drafted by the Braves as a pitcher.
That's it. I went to a tryout for the Braves. I went to a tryout for Pittsburgh when I was like in 11th grade or 10th grade or something, just to try and get on the map because I was from a small town. And my dad took me to the thing. It was in the paper, Braves tryout, whatever. So you can show up. It was free. It was in Pennsylvania. And J.J. Piccolo, who is now the assistant GM of the Kansas City Royals, was my scout. And he was based in New Jersey. And he was the one that was heading this camp for the Braves. And I went there and threw from the outfield, hit, all that stuff, went and threw in the bullpen and was like 93, 94. And so that was something that they obviously took liking to and started to come to games and follow me and started to talk to me more. And then more scouts would start to show up and all that kind of stuff. But my junior year in Legion ball, I was playing in a game and ball got thrown like towards my head, and I tried to get out of the way and put my arm up, and it hit my forearm and broke it. I threw the bat down, got to first base, and I was like, man, that hurt really bad. But I was kind of angry, so I stole first pitch, and when I slid, I was like, okay, something's seriously wrong. Yeah. But I was still kind of mad because you're young and you
got hit by pitch, right?
Yeah, you don't know how to control your emotions. So once that adrenaline left, I was sitting in a dugout. I was like, I can't go out there. So I went to the hospital, and then they were like, yeah, you fractured your forearm. So it took 4 weeks for that to heal. And then my senior year in football, they wanted to wrap that. So if it got hit with a helmet, it wouldn't injure it. And so I was a quarterback, free safety, punter, and kicker. I only came off the field for punt returns and kick returns. And the first game of the season, senior year, was going around to the left on a QB sweep thing and went to stiff arm somebody, and the pad they put on didn't let my wrist bend back. It pulled my wrist forward and then bent it back. So I ended up breaking a wrist in my bone in my wrist. It was the navicular. So it's a kidney-shaped bean. And it gets, that's the shape of it. And it gets blood from one side and the other side. And I broke it right in the middle. And they're like,
is this your throwing arm?
Yep. And they're like, if we have to put a screw in it, you'll never be able to throw a baseball. And I was like, what? And they're like, yep. And so 16 weeks it took to heal. So I went from going to be drafted in the top 5 rounds, maybe, to from the outfield and a hitter to, well, he broke his wrist. That's his bottom hand. He's left-handed. He might not be able to hit. Question marks. So I think that's why I ended up getting drafted as a pitcher later than earlier as a hitter and a outfielder.
But you still got drafted.
Yes.
As a pitcher. And so I guess you opted for the baseball route with the draft rather than the college route with the combo.
Yeah, so with that, I went on a visit to Penn State and was there and talking to the coaches and stuff like that. And, there was other people there as well, but they didn't want their quarterback or a quarterback to be playing another sport. Joe Pa wanted his quarterback to be focused on quarterbacking. So luckily I had a good left leg that could punt, so they were going to offer me a half scholarship to punt and then a half scholarship for baseball. And I ended up getting drafted. And the Braves, when they drafted me, I had in there where they would pay for the schooling that I was going to get when I was done. So I was ready to go play baseball.
So you essentially were getting a college scholarship with the drafting.
Yes.
From the Braves.
Yes.
So what are you, 18 at this time?
Yep. Yes.
And so now, instead of continuing on going to college and that sort of thing, now you are in the system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I went from being a small town kid, like in the middle of nowhere, close to the Battle of Gettysburg. Yeah. If anybody knows where that's at. Yeah. Like Amish people are within like 15 minutes of me. growing up only basically going to school and doing sports, didn't really have much outside of that as far as freedom to go do whatever I wanted. I met my wife in 10th grade. As you said, she's in here. She's kind of probably been the one that steered me in the right directions early on. But just being able to get drafted and then go to Florida and then basically not being equipped really to handle anything.
Yeah, like, that's the first question, right? I mean, and I don't know if they do anything now in Major League Baseball that helps like high school kids that get drafted that go straight into the farm system and into the minors to help them transition.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more people are more aware of stuff now, but when I was going through it, you didn't have the internet and stuff that you could just look up and know what's going on. My hometown church, Sid Bream, actually came a couple times and spoke. And so like that's the only outside influence we had as far as to talk to somebody who's gone through it or been through it and kind of any advice. And his advice was to go to school.
Yeah.
And so I didn't listen to him.
Yeah.
But that's just, when you're from a small town and, back in the day, you didn't have all the devices and all the knowledge to be able to look up stuff. You just, you listen to your parents, and if they don't know, then you don't know. And if you're not being taught that kind of stuff, you go, down to Florida in spring training, and now you're engulfed with all these different cultures, all these people, all these kids from everywhere, and they've all been living different lives than you've been living and doing different things. And then it's like, well, they want you to try this or they want you to do this. And you're like, oh, well, I don't know,
Yeah, well, that's in an age that's super influenceable,
mm-hmm.
right? And can be swayed or moved, and you're highly impressionable. And I think you're probably even surrounded, at least in proximity, to people that maybe you had looked up to, or big names in baseball,
mm-hmm.
that it's like, oh my gosh, there's so and so, and maybe even interacting with them or whatever.
Yeah.
And
you watch them, you watch what they do, and not all of them are living right. And
no,
you're like, okay, well, if that guy's doing that, he's one of my heroes. Like, I guess that's what we're supposed to be doing. Like, it's okay to do that, because it's not. Nobody's really trying to. Nobody's trying to really help you grow in the spiritual world. Let's just put it that way.
That's right. So you're in a place where you're highly impressionable. How did it shake out? I mean, what did you get sucked into it right away?
No, I didn't get sucked into it right away. It took until I got to the big leagues. So it was steadily starting to, my morals, and I didn't really drink, but then started to drink, and then you get to when I got to the big leagues, that's when it kind of fell off the railing, because it was like, oh, well, I made it. Now I don't have to kind of hold back to do the stuff that I need to make sure I'm doing.
Yeah,
like I'm there.
Yeah.
So
you're still having to work pretty hard and be semi-disciplined.
You're still doing the stuff that you did to get yourself there, but you're also doing stuff that's you're not able to put the same effort level in. And so.
All right. So when did you get called up?
I got called up in 2005 in September.
So you were drafted in what?
2001.
01?
Yeah.
Got called up in 05. All right. So that's 4 years. What was your background of faith before you got drafted?
So I grew up in Dillsburg, Pennsylvania, and I went to Harmony Bethel Church of God. The small church looked like a Pizza Hut. It literally looked like a Pizza Hut. If you remember what Pizza Huts look like with the square top.
Yeah,
I think they still look like that.
There have been many churches that have moved into vacant Pizza Huts.
Have they?
Yeah, I've seen it.
That's an interesting fact. I did not know.
I don't know if the smell is still. Was that an actual Pizza Hut?
No, it wasn't.
It just looked like one.
It looked like one.
All right, go ahead.
But that's one thing that I remember a lot that I'm kind of questioning, like, what happened. We had softball teams, that played each other as a church. And it's like, man, that was cool. We had picnics, all sorts of stuff where people were getting together and sharing God and love and all that kind of stuff. And then I noticed as I got older, all that stuff just started stopping. The softball teams for churches started to not be existent anymore. Sunday afternoons, like when you go to grandma's and she cooks and everything, like all of a sudden that started to kind of like tilt a different way. And like looking back on it now, I just wondered if it wasn't technology and stuff getting better that made people be like, oh, well, we don't have to go do that because we can do this now or something. But I just thought about that recently in the last couple of days, because I was thinking, like, why don't churches have like travel baseball teams or something and travel and play each other? Like, I think that would be really cool.
But your faith in that time, I mean, so you grew up in church? I mean, it sounds like you went to a church.
Yeah, I grew up in church, and you were going to church. Like if you were sick, and so
your family.
Yep. And so we were going no matter how you felt or anything, because as kids, you're always trying to push the limit or be like, oh, I don't want to get up. I want to just sleep in today. But Dad made us always get up and go. I took care of the soundboard. I would do that stuff, light candles, all that. But I'd never really got anything out of it as far as spirit. Like during the messages and stuff, I would zone out.
I think if you were to do a survey of adults today, what their experience was like in church as a kid, I would venture to bet 90+% are exactly the same way. It's like, oh my God, this is torturous.
Yeah, like I had, it was crazy though, because I had no clue. Like really no idea. I was living for myself.
Was it that way throughout? I mean, did you graduate high school and get drafted? Did you have an element of faith in you? I guess here's the question. Did you have an element of faith in you that sort of tapped you on the shoulder after you got drafted, and as these things were sort of getting presented to you that said, I don't know about this? Or was it like, no, I'm going to go have fun?
I can't think of an exact moment, but I definitely slowly but surely was turning my back on God.
Yeah, but did you know God? I mean, it's like, no, I had a relationship. I had asked him to, be a part of my life, and
I asked that stuff, but I didn't have the relationship. I think when you're a kid, sometimes you get caught up in, well, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't really in my heart, but it was just like, well, I'm supposed to do this.
Everybody else is doing it. And,
and
influenced again.
Yeah. And at the time I was saying it was genuine. I'm sure it was. But now looking back on it, like I had no idea what I was committing to. I didn't even know the first little bit of how to live for God, except for what I've seen other people and tried to emulate it.
Yeah. And so you think, okay, are you getting a false version of it there? And I don't think that's the case. I think, just personally, this is my own thoughts, and I'm sure there's scripture around this one way or the other. But I mean, just being in the environment oftentimes is good, right? Mm-hmm. It's an osmosis thing, right? So some of this knowledge of the Spirit and the truth of God and His existence, the Gospels, of course, the fact that you're marinating in that is going to put some of that in you that you will, in other words, train up the child in the way he should be raised, and
clean rag, dirty rag. If you're around a lot of clean rags, you're not going to get as dirty. But if you're around the dirty rags,
that's right,
the clean rag's going to start to get dirty.
So yeah, I think that's good. But they're almost always, and it's not always the case, but often there is a time that happens in life where the faith we inherit doesn't do it for us, and something happens to cause us to have a faith of our own.
Yeah, that's where I was just about to go.
Yeah, and we're going to, and I know that's where we're going. That's where this whole thing's going, is what happened that caused that. But really, I guess when you're in this place that you're getting influenced, and you're seeing these big name guys that you've watched on TV, and they're doing this, and you're in their circles even at times, and the lure of fame and the lure of money and all that stuff. I just wonder if any of that faith stuff was in you that at least gave you a tug. I mean, it might not have been able to pull you in the car with it, but
I think it did up until a point. I think once you start going down that path so far, you start to lose those tugs get less and less.
Yeah. What did like your faith foundation experience in your childhood? What did it get right for you as you look back on it now?
Family.
From a faith perspective.
Yeah. I mean, faith perspective is like we're all family. I guess for me as a kid, I feel parenting's hard. My parents were really kind of strict.
Okay.
And so failing really wasn't an option. Not being good enough or anything wasn't really an option. And so it was grow up type thing.
Yeah.
But I wasn't given everything that I wish I was given to be able to, I don't know how they could have prepared me to go out into that.
Yeah.
So like, I'm not trying to say anything bad about my parents. Like I love my parents. I wouldn't be who I am without them. But I think it was just from where I was in that time and age, everything was just happening so quick. And it was just, there was no time to prepare.
Yeah.
I was very overwhelmed.
And maybe that's the thing that if I were to ask the question, what did it not get right? I mean, that may be the case for a lot of people. Just like, okay, I don't know that I was fully prepared, but I've never asked myself the question, what did it get right? And I'm sitting here thinking about it as you're talking about it too. What did it get right when I was a kid? And, I went through the whole process of laying my faith on the line, want to know the truth as I got older and all that kind of stuff. But what did it get right back then? And for me, I think as much as anything else, is the first thing that comes to mind is the basic stories of the Bible. I learned them. I knew them. Mm-hmm. To some degree. I knew Jesus died on the cross.
Jonah and the whale.
Yeah, Jonah and Zacchaeus climbing the tree and all that stuff. We had a little song, I guess. But and John the Baptist, the guys out eating locusts and all this other stuff. And in my mind, they were just stories, just like other stories that you would read. But I remember when I got older and I started reading the Bible, it's like I was familiar. When I got to those, I was like, oh gosh, I know about this.
Okay, yep.
And then as I read it, a lot of the detail that I didn't get as a kid, because I couldn't because I was a kid, got colored in when I actually read the Bible.
Yeah,
and
I agree with you.
Yeah, I think it laid a foundation there in me that I could pray, even though I didn't. But I know when I got in situations older, it would get so bad sometimes that I would actually pray. And it was like, oh, yeah, that's it. That being an option probably is a thing that my childhood development of faith got right. That prayer is a thing that you can go and do. And the basic stories of the Bible. And maybe misconceptions I had about some of those stories as I actually got into reading the Bible. I was like, oh, okay, well, I had that wrong.
Yeah.
But at least I had some sort of foundation. And I think no matter what, just having me in that environment as a kid exposed me to things that I tapped into or God tapped into later to pull me into a deeper place with Him. So I think anything is good unless you're just absolutely making it a miserable experience for a child and it's the last thing they ever want to do in their life.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I definitely wasn't pumped to get up super early on Sundays to go to church, but I'm definitely thankful that it was instilled in me at that age because it was something that I could go back to whenever I was broken.
Yeah, for sure.
And
it was there.
Just because I didn't know what was going on when I was a kid, God's always there, and so whenever I was prepared, it was like, well, here I am.
Yeah. So you got called up, and 4 years later, so you're in your early 20s now, and also in the stage where you can eat what you want, you can drink what you want, you can do the stupidest things in the world, and most of the time not experience a lot of consequences. And when we get into a place like that, I mean, other than like breaking the law and other things like that, but when we get into that spot, we feel like we are indestructible.
Oh, invincible.
And when we get into a place like that, who needs God? You know what I'm saying? It's like,
who needs anybody?
What do I need God for? Yeah. And so those things are colliding for you at this time with this, I just got called up, I've made it, there's a check, all the stuff.
I mean, it's a huge difference in life. And you would think, let's put it this way, let's rephrase that. You would think it would be a life-changing thing. Money doesn't make you happy.
Yeah, we always hear that, and people who don't have money say, "Well, I'd like to try that out."
You'd like to try it out,
Yeah.
And some people, might be good stewards of it. I was not.
Yeah. So what happened once you got called up?
So I got called up in 2005, and when I got called up, Tim Hudson had just came from Oakland that year, and he was kind of a newer face in the clubhouse, and I was a newer face in the clubhouse because I just had gotten called up. And so he kind of like took me under his wing. Come to find out now, he says that like Sherholtz told him that he was supposed to look out for me. And I was like, what? It might just be him joking. But he, and I mean, we would drink or whatever. We would talk and have fun, but I lived with him and his family. And he had his 3 kids by then, so he's a little older. And Miss Kim, she's amazing. So I lived in the basement at their place in Peachtree City, and I'd be down there drinking. Like, come on, Tim. Like, like what are we doing? Like, let's. And he's like, man, I got a family, brother. Like, you're good. Just stay down here and relax. Have do what you want to do. But I gotta go put the kids to bed, or I gotta do this. And I was like, what? Like, I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
Like, why would you want to go do that? You know what I mean? Like, we could be having fun. So that's where my mind was. So it was awesome to have somebody like that in my life too. And like I said, his whole family just kind of poured into my family. We weren't even married at the time then, but it was just like immediate like connection, and just blessed that he was able to be, the person in that season of my life that I needed to plant the seed. I think the seed was planted when I was a kid, but I think it probably was that he was watering it, actually. Now that I think about it, I always say that he kind of planted the seed, but after we just are talking about it and I'm thinking about the past, the seed was planted from my childhood, and Tim would have been the one that watered it.
I've talked to other guys who were in the league and pursued the life of just the party life, mm-hmm. and living it up totally for themselves. I mean, did you get into that?
Oh yeah,
heavily.
Oh yes, yeah. I was.
I mean, because you're talking about moving in with the Hudsons.
Yep.
And I don't know if that was right away or whatever. And I mean, there's a difference between having some beers in the basement at the Hudson's mm-hmm. house and some of the stuff I've heard.
Yeah, yeah. So having some beers in the basement of the Hudson's house, that was very low key, like relaxing, and that'd still be like 12 to 20 some beers. I have a high metabolism,
yeah,
and then playing sports and stuff like that kind of helps to. I don't know how I did it, to be honest, but it just became a part of life.
Yeah,
where to be able to have my brain shut off at nighttime to sleep because of the way I was living, for one, but everything else, you would have the baseball games. If you had a bad game, your wheels just kind of spin, and at that level, it's more than just a game. Like, it's your life.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I started to get panic attacks, anxiety attacks. And so I still suffer from like stuff like that, and have to take medicine. But I think maybe that's some substances I used, or maybe that's, some people have problems with that stuff. Maybe it's childhood, or maybe it's, I'm not sure. I don't really want to go digging around that too much.
Yeah.
But I know there's something there. And God's just been super amazing, that the grace he's shown me, and that everything that I kind of did that was the wrong, and that I did to make myself happy, like that I thought I was happy, he never left. And when I came to him, he showed me that it's not about being happy. Happy is of the world. Like, you want to have some joy. Yeah. You want some true joy. So if you want some true joy, follow me.
Yeah. How long did it last? I mean, you talked about you began to drink, and I'm assuming that you were pretty reckless with some stuff, and maybe that wasn't the case. But how long did that last?
I got away with a lot of stuff because of being a baseball player or whatever in my hometown. I had plenty of signs now looking back on it that was like, hey, you need to clean it up. Like I would just get in a car, and when I go to the beer distributor or whatever, I would put the case of beer right there, open it up, pop the top, and wherever I was going, I always had an open beer.
Right. Do you think you were addicted?
Yeah, I was a functioning alcoholic for sure. 100%.
Did you ever go to recovery or rehab?
I had to go to a rehab class with Atlanta one time because they would drug test you in the minor leagues, and all of us guys went out one night, and they kind of knew, and they come around at 6 a.m, knock on your door,
Yeah.
pee in a cup, and it was like, okay, and then I was over the legal limit to drive was what they told me, and I was like over the legal limit. I was in bed, like I'm old enough to drink, and I was in bed in a hotel room, but they had a no drinking in the minor leagues policy, so I broke a rule. And so did a lot of other people. But because of that, you had to go sit in these classes. And I was sitting in those classes just like, I don't have a problem. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I was saying the stuff that you're supposed to say and all that kind of stuff. But I wasn't changing anything.
So is this years?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. This goes on till
5 years? 8 years?
This goes on for 10 years.
10
probably.
years?
Yeah, 10 years. And it just keeps getting worse and worse as far as the drinking and like what the drinking would lead to. Like strip clubs, drugs, you name it. But that's what was making me happy at that time, or what I thought was making, or what I thought that we were supposed to be doing. It was very reckless. Looking back on it, it gives me stress, a lot of stress, because it's like I was being protected that whole time for some reason.
Yeah. And now you and your wife had been together since you were kids, 16.
10th grade, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. What was her faith background?
So she grew up in church, and her faith background was probably a lot stronger than mine.
So when all this was going on, this 10 plus years of drinking way too much and it leading into a lot of other things that are super destructive, was she there? Were y'all together?
Yeah, and she would be trying to get me when I was going places or going to the bar, and she knew I was drunk, because I've already had like a handle of liquor, and then I'm going to go out in a 1,000 horsepower Camaro to go to get gas at a gas station, and she's trying to stop me, and I'm like, no, like I'm going, and then she would just pray at home over a Bible while I was gone.
So that was a question. I didn't know if this is the life you lived together.
No,
or this was a thing that was tugging at the strength of your marriage.
So when you were asking about tugging before, now looking back on it, she was the only one that was really tugging me. And then it became a point where she stopped tugging and she just joined.
Joined you?
Yeah.
So there was a point where you guys, this was your life together.
Yep. Yeah, it was a point where she stopped tugging really and then just joined me.
So your influence pulled her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not good.
So you were the dirty rag.
I was a dirty rag. Yep. And I talk about that all the time now, and it just kind of hit me right in between the eyeballs that I corrupted my wife. Like the only person that's really ever truly loved me for me and stuck by me through everything. And I made her abandon her morals to be with me. Didn't really ever think about that or say it out loud until you hear it. It's like, man.
All right, so I know you guys now, and you are not those. That's not the life you live.
No,
you live a completely different life.
Yes.
How do you get from where you were there to where you are now? I mean, how did that happen?
Well, you start to fill your life with the stuff that you think is going to make you happy, because that's what you're going to do. And then
having fun and going out drinking makes you happy.
Yeah. And then, buying stuff that you can afford. I had 15 cars. I had 2 motorcycles, 2 mopeds, 2 3-wheelers, 2 4-wheelers. Like, you needed to have 2 of stuff because you didn't want to ride alone.
No, for sure.
So, and my hobby was always stuff with engines and cars. I always loved working on cars. And I think that was instilled from my dad. He used to go out and, change the oil and do everything that he could do on a car himself. And he kind of taught me that. And so I've always it's been my hobby. And so I started acquiring all this stuff and thought I had it all and was drinking. And during this time, I went from the Braves, and then I had Tommy John in 2007, which that was just a rehabbing my elbow, but partying nonstop. Because I would
think, though, in all of this, that the lifestyle has to be taking a toll on your professional performance as well. Is it not?
It's crazy. I was a functioning alcoholic at a professional level.
Yeah,
which is crazy.
You would think that it would limit your ability to function at the highest levels.
Yeah.
I mean, are there guys playing Major League Baseball right now that are out there every night, that are on Sports Center and everything else, that are functioning alcoholics?
Yeah, I mean, I was to the extreme, but yes, there's guys that are like me probably right now that are doing the same thing, and that's I wish I could help those guys, but I had guys that tried to help me, and I was invincible.
Yeah,
like they were telling me stuff, trying to wake me up, but nothing was going to stop me. I had the world by the horns.
Yeah. So what happened with you guys? I mean, now you've got Tara living your life, and the influence that she had is kind of
and so
changed.
I mean, I played. So I had the Tommy John, started drinking more, got released from the Braves in 2009 at the end of spring training. Didn't know what to do with that, so just kept drinking. But then got picked up by Kansas City. It stayed like that, It stayed with just 6 to 15 to 20 beers every night, and then, I was in Japan, played over there, and they drink like crazy over there too. So I was drinking over there, and then they don't have dip over there, but they smoke cigarettes. And at the 5th inning, they have a break, and the umpires and everybody smokes a cigarette.
The players?
Oh, all the players smoke cigarettes overseas. Yeah,
during the games.
Oh yeah. They can they'll suck down a heater right after a home run. Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
But you're not like that now. Something happened. What happened?
Well, went to Japan, went to Korea, but I got back and started playing baseball at home. So 25 minutes from my door to where I was playing baseball professionally was the York Revolution. And I was just about ready to get picked up by Pittsburgh. And I was questioning God, getting drunk. And so 2015, I think it was July 4th, I had pitched. I'd done well. And I started drinking right after I was done pitching. I think it was some sort of vodka and root beer or something. And usually I would drink beer, but I was drinking liquor because it was the only thing that was there. So once I started with liquor, I didn't want to switch to beer, so I just bought another bottle of liquor. And I think 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, I was like, I'm going to go ride.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. So I took side-by-side to Buddy's house where I had a dual sport bike, picked that up, and then rode that and was riding that. And the carburetor was gummed up from sitting. And so it wasn't running right. So I was like, I'm going to clean it out. So I was cleaning it out and running it hard to try and clean out the jets in the carburetor. And it started running good. And so I was like, okay. And I got to a parking lot and I was like, okay, should I go to McDonald's and get some stuff or just go home? And I was like, I'll just go home. So I turned and I looked down and I saw 2. So I was going 2 miles an hour and the bike stalled. So there's 2 different jets in the carburetor on that bike. One's for idling around and starting, and then the other one's for wide open throttle. So the wide open throttle one was cleaned out, but the one when you're just kind of cruising wasn't. And I wasn't in the right headspace to realize any of that. Didn't have the clutch pulled in. It just kicked me off to the side. And when I came off to the side and put my leg down, it just snapped. The bike was on the side. I got up to try and pick the bike up, and I couldn't. And I went to like step, and I looked down, and I was basically, my leg was out to the side, and I was like standing on my shin. And I was like, oh no. So I tried to do that 2 more times and kept on losing my balance because I was hammered.
Yeah.
So I was like, I got to get out of here. So I flung my leg up over my other leg and army crawled through the drive-through of the Eckerd around the back by a dumpster and called my wife. And I told her to come get me, that my leg was off. And she was like, what? And so she got the kids together, and they were there within like 7 minutes. And we went to the hospital, and they didn't operate on me for a long time because I was way over the limit. But I had a buddy come pick up the bike who ran a tow truck company or whatever. So nobody even knew besides me and my wife. Obviously had to call the team and let them know that I broke my leg. So since it happened off the field, no insurance, nothing. And so now I'm in the hospital and broken leg and drunk, and I don't realize what's going on. But I asked God for a sign, right? And I didn't get the easy ones. And at this time, I didn't think anything of it. Like if they put a rod in my leg and it was supposed to be 6 weeks, and at the end of that 6 weeks, I was going to get back to playing baseball and be the same guy. But when they put the rod in, infection was on the rod. And so had the infection, was giving me pain. I'd go in, give blood. They'd be like, you don't have infection. It's not in your blood. And I was like, oh, okay. So I'd go home and I'd be in pain, and I'd go back in and I'd be like, I'm in a lot of pain. And they're like, you just want more pain medicine type thing. And so I had a surgery. They went in, they cleaned out some stuff. So I'd been surgery 2. Surgery 1 was put the rod in. Surgery 2 was to go in and kind of figure out why I was having pain. They put a wound vac in, like drained whatever was in there that could have been causing pressure. Sewed it up, looked good. Went home. By the end of the month, it'd be a lot of pain again, swollen. Go in, they'd take my blood. They'd be like, there's nothing wrong. You just want more pain medicine. So that happened for 5 surgeries. And I was like, I need a second opinion. And I think I went to a team's orthopedic doctor. He gave me his opinion before I went to get the second opinion. And then I went to get the second opinion at Hershey Medical Center in Pennsylvania. Penn State Hershey Medical Center, by the way.
Yeah.
And the doctor there, Dr. Spencer Reed, took x-rays. It was the day before my birthday. He comes in and he's like, Rod's got to come out tomorrow. You're going to lose your leg if you didn't already. And I said, what? He's like, emergency surgery. Rod's got to come out tomorrow. You're going to lose your leg if you didn't already. And so that was kind of like a huge, I'm not invincible anymore. I can't fix this. Doctors don't even know what's going on. Infection is in there now. I know it's there. Before they were telling me it's not. So I was just thinking I was being a wuss, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, surgery 6, I told the doctor to cut my leg off. And it was Dr. Spencer Reed, and he said, we're not there yet. And that surgery 6, they took the rod out to put the external fixator on. And then the surgery 7 was because my leg didn't heal after they took the rod out. The bone was so damaged that it wouldn't heal. And so surgery 7 was for them to go in, rearrange the external fixator, and cut the damaged bone out, which was an inch of bone. They cut that inch of bone out, and then I would use the fixator, and I would spin these dials 3 times a day, and it would slowly stretch my bone down.
So that it would grow into the other
so
part that would have been cut out.
Yep. So the middle was basically like there. They cut that out, and then they started stretching it down to where it would come down to meat. And then once it got that, so that took 2 years, 14 surgeries in 2 years. But after surgery 7, after they cut the inch of bone out, and I woke up, my wife said, do you want to listen to this church service? And I was like, I was groggy. I remember plain as day her saying it, and I was like, no, I'm not ready to listen to it now. I just woke up from surgery. And she was like, oh, okay. And she put her phone over by the window, like the window, and it has like the AC vent, typical hospital window.
Yeah.
And she's sitting in the chair beside the bed. About 5 to 10 minutes later, it just started playing on its own. And I just broke down like a baby in bed, started crying, because it was about how Jesus went to the cross and died for us, and he didn't do anything wrong, and I know the life that I lived, so I deserved every bit of what I was getting, but I had given up. Like, I gave up, and I basically told God right then, I said, if there's any way out of this, like, I'll tell everybody this story. And slowly but surely, everything started to get better, and it was a miracle.
All right, I got some questions. So, can you go over there for a minute with him? When you joined him,
yes.
Why did you join him?
I was tired of always nagging at him, to stop. I'd be like, it's Sunday. Come on. Like, what are you doing? Why are you drinking on Sunday? Like, do you ever stop? I guess I just came to a point where I was tired of feeling that way and nagging all the time.
And so you joined him? You went with him?
Yes. Yeah. For the most part. I mean, I had the children, at that time. So, I obviously they were my number one priority in caring for them, but I would get a sitter. I was more apt to get a sitter because people influencing us and being like, well, you're always taking care of those kids. Why don't you get a sitter and go out? It was a combination.
Yeah,
of
and
things.
I get that, right? It's a date night sometimes, and
Yes.
it depends on what you choose to do, I guess. If you're going to be destructive with that or productive with it or whatever, and you guys seem like you're in love and have been, and that's great. And but faith-wise, I mean, you're praying over your Bible for your husband, right?
Right, and that obviously was God's doing. Like that wasn't normal. That wasn't a normal situation. That was just right at the end there before his accident. That wasn't something that I normally did. It was all led by God. I didn't know that I was even doing that.
What made you pull up a sermon on your phone and suggest that he listen?
So once he had his accident, I was like, we have to get involved in a church, and that's when it started for me. So right after his accident was when I was like, all right, I asked a friend actually, hey, what church do you go to? And they were like, we go to this small church, like, why don't you come on Sunday? So that's what started. And like, once I started going, I was going every Sunday, whether he could go or not. And if it was a really good sermon, I'd be like, all right, Anthony, you need to watch, you need to watch this online if you can't make it. And
so you were getting moved, right? And
oh, yes.
Sort of before he was in a place where he was, or as he was getting into a place of desperation where this was your way of helping to provide some type of solution. So your faith was changing already.
Yes, at that.
Yeah.
Yes, at that.
I'm trying to figure out how God used all this stuff and how it shaped up. And I keep hearing that there was a place a role that you were playing in all this stuff where you were beginning to be an influence.
Yes, and I didn't realize it at the time, and I think it was just God, working through me. I don't really think that it was anything that it was me necessarily. Like I said, I never got the Bible out and started praying over it before, but I also was scared to death. I knew how intoxicated he was, and with him walking out the door, I was like, oh no, this isn't good.
Yeah. So the sermon, so you pulled up, was it like a streaming sermon or something, Facebook Live, or?
I was there in person that day, I think, for this. Or maybe I heard the sermon already, so I knew what it was about.
Oh, okay. And then you just took it in there and said...
Yes, I was like, I know this is a good one. I need, you need to hear it.
All right. So I want you to be able to pull the mic back over to you. I totally didn't, and you can stay or whatever, and this is a fun way that these things sometimes shake out or whatever, and so it's good. So it was sitting on the window?
Yeah. Yeah, it was sitting over by the window, like not even where anybody...
Did you have it queued up?
I didn't know that was going to happen at all. It wasn't planned.
Yeah, because it seems like it would be, okay, maybe it was like buffering for a while, and the timing was about such that...
The only thing that I could possibly think is, you know how like when some moisture gets on your phone and it'll like start hitting buttons for you? Like with it sitting over by the AC, like... Maybe something. I don't know.
Mine hasn't done that before.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, it's definitely. It was definitely like there was like an angel in there. I was just like, hey, you don't need to hear this. I think you do right now, actually.
Yeah, and so it coming on. Was she not in the room when it came on?
No, she was in the room, and I was like, I'm pretty sure I said, I told you I didn't want to hear that, and she goes, I'm sitting right beside you, and I was so drugged up. I looked, and she was right beside me. And I was like, who played it? And she was like, I don't know. And I just got goosebumps like crazy because I vividly remember spinning because I was laying with my head to the left. And you know, when you wake up, well, maybe if you never had surgery, but if you ever woke up from anesthesia, when you turn, it's like you're moving a million miles a second. And so like I'm turning and like I see her and I'm trying to process what's going on. And I'm like, it's just playing. And she was like, yeah. And so I'm just sitting there kind of like...
So that got your attention a little bit?
Yeah, and I'm still kind of a little foggy because of just waking up from surgery. And it was just like peace. Because I was sitting there trying to figure out how I was going to fix everything. And God was like, you're not, you know? And it was like at that moment when I basically realized that this is the moment. Like this is rock bottom. Yeah, I definitely died in that hotel room bed.
In the hospital room bed.
Yep.
The old Anthony.
Mm-hmm.
Just tell me about that.
I stopped living for me. And now I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm perfect. You know, I struggle is probably more now than I did before because I'm trying to live the right way. So I feel like the devil attacks me a lot more. But that's why you just have to surround yourself with the people that you do and serve where you can. And just, you know, the first time through life, I had friends, right? No. When I was in the hospital room, nobody came.
Yeah.
You know, when that money dried up, but I had to die first for God to be able to use me.
Is that part? That's the part I'm trying to get to. Is it sounds like you made a pivot in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a life-changing lifestyle pivot, and not that you got it perfect after that, but I know people who want that to happen. And it doesn't seem to happen for them.
And that's why it keeps me going and keeps me spreading love and praying for people when I can and sharing my testimony whenever I can, is because not a lot of people get answered prayers. Not a lot of people get second chances.
What was your prayer that got answered? I mean, did you pray something that when you look at this is the answer to that prayer? Or was it her prayer that got answered?
I know her prayers got answered.
Yeah.
I didn't really do much praying until my accident. And then, I mean, I don't have any problems with my leg. I got back to being able to play professional baseball in Venezuela. I can still deadlift 500 pounds. I can still run. I ran 60s with the guys the other day. Like I'm still, everything is still as good as it was before. I got completely healed. And the doctor, the lawyer, everybody I had that went through the stuff was like, you shouldn't be alive. And then when I heard that church service on the thing, it just made me think that like Jesus never did anything wrong, but yet he was willing to do that for us. And then I'm kind of laying in bed and like not willing to really do anything for him, you know? And it was just like, everybody should feel in debt to God.
He gave himself fully for you.
Yeah.
But I've given nothing to him. Is that?
That's pretty much what it was. Yeah. I was the worst Christian because I grew up in church.
Yeah.
So it was planted. So I'd be going around doing everything I was doing, but like, oh yeah, I'm a Christian. I'm just off the path. Literally words that I would say.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, just giving all Christians a bad name. So I was doing the opposite of what I should have been doing for God. And he still saw purpose enough in me to allow me to be where I am now.
Yeah, I'm still in a deal where you spent 15 plus years living for you and doing the things that are fun and being indestructible. And I guess you got into a place where you couldn't solve it, right, with the leg.
Mm-hmm.
Looked pretty bleak. But coming out of that, and once you heal up or whatever, what causes you to not go back to the fun way, what you thought was fun, I guess, into the life that you live now? I there's still something hit you in there, and I don't know what I'm trying to find out what it is.
Well,
something hit you in there that you changed, and you became somebody else in a moment that lasted.
It's probably whenever I went to Venezuela, because in my mind, I had this all planned out, right? It was, man, you're going to get back to the big leagues. You're going to be able to share this, and everybody's going to hear. Everybody's going to know. But that wasn't it. It was God was going to use me to go to Venezuela. And when I was there, it was like, okay, like, I didn't think I was there to play baseball. It didn't feel like it. And maybe that's just because I was so much time off, or it was where I was mentally and in my spiritual life. But it was like I wasn't there to play baseball. I was there to serve. And I think it was like after 2 weeks of being there, somebody came in. And now, mind you, this is after I've rehabbed my leg. Tim invited me down to Alabama here to live on his farm and help with his baseball facility he had in Phoenix City. So that's the only way I was able to rehab and try and get back, is by having that opportunity open up and be somewhere for me to go and do that. And so I'm truly blessed for that opportunity. And God, you know, that's just one of those things where God uses people in certain seasons to try and get you to where he wants you to be. And a guy showed up in Venezuela, and he had a Pray First bracelet on. And because of being here, rehabbing and all that stuff, we got into Church of the Highlands, and we became members and stuff, and they hand out the Pray First bracelets. So I'm in Venezuela on a baseball team, and a dude shows up, and he's playing catch, and you know, there's only a couple American guys that go over there, and I'm like, you got a Pray First bracelet on. Where'd you get that? He was like, oh, my Church of the Highlands. I said, where? He goes, Auburn. I said, what? I said, I go to Church of the Highlands in Auburn. And so, like, once he was, like, I knew he was there, I was like, we got to do something, because people are eating out of trash on the sides of roads and stuff. And the exchange rate for American dollars to their money was like 1 to like 9,000 or something like that. So for the whole time I was there for like a month, I ate full meals. It cost me like $30 for a full month. Like, so like these meals are like $1. So the American dollar is really powerful over there. So they had Clubhouse guy, and you know, they have families. Okay, well, can I give you some money and you go buy the stuff, cook some stuff, and write in Spanish, God loves you, on top of these things. And we got a bunch of the guys together, and we gave security guys some money, because you don't really want to go out by yourself there. And they drove us around, and we delivered over 100 meals to people on the sides of the road. There were some babies that were just laying on like back behind like the curb, and we were able to pray. And so like that right there was when I was like, that is better than anything I've ever done in baseball. Being able to pray over people and give them some hope. I mean, homeless people laying on the side of the road, you walk up to them and you have a thing of food for them and you pray for them. Like, that could change their life forever. And so I think that was when I realized that joy is way better than being happy. Because playing baseball, yeah, that makes me happy. But whenever I can shine God's light on people that are down, whenever I had like when God shined his light on me when I was down, and to be able to do that, like the feeling was unexplainable. Yeah. And so whenever I share my testimony, like I shared it I got a coaching job offer over in South Korea where I played. First time they ever hired a foreign coach. And when we first got over there, and it was crazy because I was praying because I thought in my mind, okay, I played in Venezuela. I'm back to playing baseball. I threw like 50 innings, had a 3 ERA, was like 93, 94. And actually had the Braves interested in me. And then when they found out I was 36,
I was about to say, that's not bad for an old guy.
Yeah. When they found out, they were talking about signing me to Double-A and all that stuff, and if I would be okay with that. And I was just like, anything. I just want to help the young guys like that were like me. And I just want to keep, like in my mind, that's how God was going to use me, is basically to go in there and find guys that were like me and try and get them before they made the wrong stuff that I did.
Yeah.
But as I'm growing in my faith and everything, it's like, okay, you're not supposed to do that type of stuff. You know, you're not supposed to try and control the outcome of what God has planned for you. And so it's just funny how God's kind of used everything, because now I have a mobile detailing business. It's called All Washed Up Mobile Detailing. Because I didn't know what I was going to do after baseball. Yeah. And I knew we didn't want to go back to Korea because of COVID. But yeah, when I got that offer to go over there, I prayed about it because I didn't know if it was the devil trying to dangle the carrot of fame and all that stuff again over me, because how am I going to be able to share my testimony with everybody if I'm over there? They don't speak my language.
Yeah.
So when I got over there, I was adamant about it. And I mean, I shared the testimony in church and all that stuff. And then COVID, but we really didn't realize that it was a bad thing, you know, until we got kind of a sign that it was time to leave. Tara's dad gotten sick, and she was trying to go home because he was given like a week to live. He's still alive now, but at the time, you know, his kidneys failed. And so that was a difficult decision, because it was like, okay, am I supposed to stay here? Am I supposed to go with you? What are we supposed to do? So we prayed about it, and it was like, okay, you're supposed to go. I'm supposed to stay here. If you get on the flight, like, that's what's supposed to happen. And then we prayed about it, and sure enough, the COVID paperwork wasn't filled out right by the team or something. So she was stuck at the airport with a Great Dane, 180-pound Great Dane, a small dog that we rescued over there that I picked up. She was smashed on the side of the road, which is a whole another story. But that was a God thing, I believe, because as I was driving by this dog, it made eye contact with me, and I was late for a meeting, and something told me to go around and pick up this dog. And I just, when you try and do the right thing, sometimes it gets really hairy really quickly. So I tried to drop this dog off at the vet, just so I didn't want to die on the road. And because I'm in another country, they're like, oh no, you can't do that, like, type thing. And I'm like, what do you mean? It's not my dog. Like, it was just on the side of the road. And long story short, we still have the dog. And it was going to be $7,100 to fix her. And I was like, I don't have the money to fix her. And so we prayed about it. I was like, how are we going to, why did I pick up this dog? You know, now my wife's seen it. The kids have seen it. Like, the vet's telling me just to keep it in the car. Maybe it'll get better. Like, it has a broken hip, a broken front leg, $7,000 to fix. I can't afford it. Made a GoFundMe. Had the money within 24 hours.
Really?
Yeah. Made a GoFundMe over in Korea. Had the money within 24 hours. Unbelievable.
But you know, this is after. Is this after the leg?
Yep.
So you're already in a place where your faith is growing. I find similar things, right? So you get filled with compassion for things that maybe you blow right by previously. Those are ways that the Holy Spirit shapes us and moves us.
Yeah.
But your why is different now, even in that time. I mean, you're thinking, okay, I'm rehabbing, I can get back to at least some degree. But your why sounds different than what your why was before the accident.
Yeah. I think my why is now is because I know I need to. We all need to. Like, it's a serious matter when it comes to life and death and people being saved and not being saved, and the way the devil can attack people. It makes you feel like you're the only one, you know, and he loves to try and keep you in there. The devil loves to try and keep you in there.
You weren't talking any of these things before that accident. You weren't. No. This wasn't a language you were speaking before. This was a. There's something about this that is not just another thing in the world to sort of tinker around with and try, but the only thing. And I think that's an important place for people to get to.
Yeah.
Because when we think faith in God is something that's on a shelf with the other things of this world, including wealth, including health, including travel, whatever else it is that's in this world, it's like, I think I want to do this in my life, and this in my life, and this in my life. And we treat faith as one of those things. We treat God as another thing in the world rather than the creator of the world. So it causes us to sort of select him as we select other things which become idols, right? It's how we are led into idolatry, because we treat all of it as something that we can pull from on the shelf. But I know this happened for me. In my time of searching for truth, I have, and I won't go through the long route that led me to there, but I know what truth is now. And truth is the truth of the existence of a creator God who is infinite in his goodness and power and intelligence, whose objective is for us to be connected to him, in relationship with him. And when we are in that place, the product of that is loving others in a deep way, and also a deep desire to make others aware of this ultimate, unbelievable creator God that exists above, far beyond everything that we encounter, and just to point people to him. Because what we've learned to be the truth is that life is eternal. But we don't live that way. We live like we got to get it all in before we die, because when we die, it's over. That's how we live.
Yep.
And even people of faith, Christians, live that way. People don't consider and take seriously this notion of life being eternal, that our consciousness, our soul, exists still the moments after and beyond, after our body is dead. So we don't live that way. But when we come to understand that that's the truth, that the truth is that we are in an eternal life, and that this is a breath of that, and that the objective of this life is to be in connection with this Creator God, when we start to see that, our why on anything we do changes. It's the only reason I do what I do.
Yeah.
It's the only reason I do what I do. is to be in conversations with people who have had this experience that say, it's real. I can only tell you what's happened to me, and it's changed me. And I didn't subscribe to it, or I didn't join up like I joined a country club. Or I didn't subscribe to it like I would subscribe to a new fitness or training program. This is way beyond that. This is the only thing that matters. And when we get to that place,
yes,
our why changes. Our why we do anything changes.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't being a good steward of all the stuff I had. And whenever we needed money, because I wasn't making any money at the time, for those 2 years, every time we needed money, a car would sell or something would sell. Like, it was like the timing of everything. And people are like, you're not going to sell that car, are you? And I was like, yeah, I am. Like, I don't need it. I don't care anymore. Like, the stuff of this world doesn't tempt me. Like, we're in a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment right now with a family, and we're happier than we could.
How does that sit with you? That's the question. Then how does that sit with you?
We're happier than we've ever been.
I mean, that's what people don't understand. And that's what I guess I'm saying.
Yeah.
I talk to guys like you who have experienced this, and the degree of priority of things, they can look back and say, man, I had that out of whack.
It's all a distraction. Everything that I had was a distraction, keeping me away from God's purpose for me. It was taking up a lot of my time. It was taking away a lot of time from my family. And yeah, you're living for yourself.
It is that awakening that we are, that both of us, all three of us, that we so desire for other people.
Yes.
And people like us, it's not just us, there's many people that have experienced that. And I feel like the rest of the world looks at us like, these guys have lost it.
Well, no, that's my friends,
crazy,
my
man.
friends, my parents. Like, a lot of people were like, "You're doing what?"
Yeah.
You're doing, and then it was like, "Yeah, this is what I'm doing." They're like, "What are you gonna do?"
Yeah.
It's like,
exactly.
I'm gonna do nothing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pray.
Yeah. And I'm gonna let Him guide me. And
Yeah.
and tell me if this is the case for you. When I actually believe that God is real and trust Him and say, hey, look, I'm giving my life to you. We still maybe don't really get what we need to do that. But it's like, okay, this day I'm giving it to you. And so I want you steer, you guide, you do whatever it is. And I'm just going to follow, and I'm going to love, and I'm going to try to do everything I can that pleases you in that. The stuff that happens.
It's really hard, though, too.
Yeah, it's not easy, but it's crazy. And
Yeah.
I promise you, and when you talked about it earlier, you talked about joy versus happiness, and I get what you're saying. What I recognize that as now, and there have been years in my life that I've made lots of money in my corporate former life, and that astonish me now.
Right.
I get it, and I've done some cool things from that sort of earthly achievement perspective. But when I feel like I have, at the end of the day, feel like I have done the thing that God put me on this planet to do,
Yes.
there is, you call it joy, and I get it. I call it fulfillment.
Yeah,
there is a sense of fulfillment that the greatest accomplishments I did in anything else doesn't come close to.
Not even close.
And a dollar bill doesn't come associated with it.
Dollar bill is not even on the radar.
And we need money to live. I understand that.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not saying don't go earn an income and just, but when you live your life with a different why, when that light bulb flicks on for you and God moves into that space and opens your eyes to it, the things that fulfill you on a deep, deep level that none of the things of the world will ever match.
Never.
And I've experienced a ton of them. 54 years old, right? So this ain't new.
Yeah.
It's not even close.
Yeah.
It's not even close.
It's not. It doesn't. I mean, I threw a no hitter in Venezuela, and that was 2011. And when I was serving there, I think it was 2018. Well, when I got back to play there, it was 2018. But the feeling that I had after that was unlike any feeling I've ever had in my life. Like my cup was a runneth over.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it was amazing. And I knew at that moment that's my purpose, is to share my testimony with people. And not only share my testimony, but to tell other people, like, you need to share your testimony.
Yeah.
Because everybody has a testimony.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the people that are like, nah, mine's not that good or whatever, yours is probably the best.
I hear it all the time.
Because how do you follow God when you didn't have a breaking moment? You know, some people don't ever have to hit rock bottom to just be on fire.
Yep.
So that's kind of like, for me, is like, well, where do those people how do they get their strength? Or where do they get their strength from to be able to, like, mine is because, like, I'm in debt to God. Like, we all should be, because he did something for us that not one of us would do for anybody.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
In looking at things with you now, I still feel like you're in the early stages of things that you're going to do on this earth that are kingdom-minded. I don't think you're anywhere close to the end. I think you're getting started, which is cool. But based on your experiences so far, how would you coach somebody who is transitioning into that part of life like you did when you get drafted in those early 20s, when we think we're indestructible, as they're transitioning into that I'm getting ready to conquer the world phase? How would you coach somebody on that, knowing that they still have to live their life, they have to get their own experiences, but
I think I thought about this a lot, because how would I have changed myself?
yeah, how would you coach
Exactly.
young Anthony?
And the answer that I always get is, you don't. I had people reach out to me, and I wasn't ready. So yeah, what makes me have an opportunity to go through that and then all of a sudden be like, oh, I'm ready now, you know, and it's okay when people don't always get that. So that's the other part that drives me more, I think. But yeah, there's not really anything I think I could say to a kid that was in my position that would legitimately make them change, like, as drastically as what I changed. You can't do it, I don't think. It's got to be a God thing or a Holy Spirit thing. We can plant the seed, we can water it, but when it comes to the harvest or the growing, that's God.
So then how would you plant the seed? What seed would you plant?
So plant the seed, I just share what Jesus did for me. You know, everything that I've been like, how I would go to kids now and what I do for the kids at Lee Scott here, where I'm being able to help coach, is I just say, we got to be uncomfortable being uncomfortable. We all are going to pray. We're going to do, you know, cause at that age, nobody really wants to pray. Like, they get embarrassed or whatever, and bullying and all that kind of stuff. So it's just trying to make it a place where I open up to them and share everything that's me, so that they feel comfortable enough to where they can come to me with anything. Because you need somebody to talk to that you can trust. You need support of your Christian, you know, you just need fellowship to keep you on track. And I think it starts with the young people. You know, we got to get to them sooner. And I'm just blessed that I get to work with kids that are coming up in baseball. I can describe to them the places where I went wrong and what I got wrong, and then I can tell them. And then from there, it's up to them to figure it out.
Yeah, and I think it sounds like you guys, and so you and Tim work together. So Tim Hudson, people listening may know who Tim is. He's a pitcher for the Braves, and he was pitched for the Angels, I think, for a while. And
it was Oakland, the
A's.
Braves, and then
Not the
the
Angels.
Giants.
It was Oakland, that's right.
Yeah.
Anyway, you guys are coaching together now.
Yes.
You coach a high school team.
Yeah.
And it's been fun watching you guys interact, and we're actually here at the facility right now, which is a lot of fun too. So I've had a chance to do interviews in lots of different places, and warehouses, and over beautiful lakes. We're looking over a baseball field, and it's fun to do that.
Yes.
But you guys create a culture of faith, and maybe that's what you can do in those times. And we have to experience things on our own before we ever really get things. I mean, it's the experiential side of things that bakes things into us, and that's understandable. But speaking honestly and openly about the truth of the existence of God, and it's not just a story, or a fairy tale thing. That could be the very seed that somebody grabs onto later in life when they're in trouble. Is like, maybe that God thing is real, and I need to go check it out.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I like, and everybody's going to be different, but for me, I want to be a soldier for God.
For sure.
Like, I want to suit up in the full armor, and I know that for me, my sword needs to be sharper, right? But how does that happen? Well, iron sharpens iron. So surround yourself by good Christian men. We work out in the mornings, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We just started. But getting yourself in a group of good guys or women, or, I mean, it could be guys and women.
Yeah.
Just whatever. But surrounding yourself with people like that, and then getting on the same page to be able to hold everybody accountable, and then not being afraid to share stuff that's scary.
I came to talk to you because it was very apparent that a pivot had happened in your life and in your lives, and you guys are living a life of faith and obedience to God now, with like a fraction of the financial stability you ever saw in the past, or any of those other things. But you walk around with this look on your face like, I'm good.
Oh yeah, I have no clue like how it's going to play out. I just know that if it's hard to do, then I probably should be doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. If it's waking up at 6 a.m. to go work out guys, or if it's staying late after practice to talk to a kid, or if it's being in our accountability group every week, it's just, and then trying to like adjust your schedule. Like, just don't get in a habit where like you put something off, and then before you know it, you're not doing it anymore. Because I feel like that's where in Korea started to get like a little stale towards the end of our time being there. But that just could have been because the season that I was supposed to go be over there was over. So my faith and my foundation wasn't really planted there anymore. It needed to be somewhere else.
Yeah, your eyes are set into a place now where you're recognizing that just about everything that's going on in your life is a movement of God in some way. And you see intentionality and purpose behind all those things, rather than just being random stuff that you have to react to in the world. And that's a cool thing. I mean, that is to me, it looks like an indwelling of the Holy Spirit, where he was not. And there were bits and pieces, but some doors got kicked open inside of you, and he just rushed on in. And
I mean, one thing that I will say that is really kind of crazy is I've always bit my fingernails, like when I was a kid.
Yeah,
always. And after my accident in that church service, and when I gave my life up to God, I don't bite my fingernails anymore.
Is that something you tried to stop doing?
No,
it just happened.
Yeah. It's weird.
Unintended consequences of some behaviors, right?
I think it's almost like I was possessed. Like I had, like the devil was in me. Like I was not living for God. So I wasn't just an empty person. The devil was using me. And whoever he was put inside me that was using me to do all the bad stuff had a fingernail biting problem. I mean, or it was the way I was living and the stress of the way I was living. But I felt that that was something I needed to say. That was like one of those weird things that happened. Because like I always bit my nails. My grandma used to always, and my dad, everybody, and do them. And now I don't bite them.
When did
anymore.
it stop?
After I gave up my life for God.
In the hospital?
Yeah, like since those surgeries, yep, stopped biting my nails. I stopped drinking. I stopped biting my nails. I stopped smoking cigarettes, or all nicotine, no nicotine.
All of those are addictive behaviors that you don't just drop.
And I was also on 20 milligrams of morphine, time release, 2 times a day, and 20 milligrams of Oxycontin up to 8 times a day. So that's 40 milligrams of morphine in a day and 20 times 8. So that's a lot.
I would challenge people in the medical community or scientists to explain to me how those addictive behaviors can get cut off like a light switch. I don't understand that, and the only thing that explains that to me is that
I'm sitting across from you, and I have no idea.
The indwelling of the Holy Spirit, right? And so the Holy Spirit is God, and so God moving right into you, right? Yeah. And you open those doors finally, and He did, and He said, "Okay, here I am." And those places, those things didn't have a place to inhabit you anymore. Yeah, that's. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, that was one of the things that, I mean, I've told a lot of people that, because I was like, it was weird. It could have been just the stress of the way I was living, or anxiety, and maybe I don't have that now because that spot I
don't think that goes away that quickly.
Yeah.
I think that takes some time to eliminate that. I could be wrong, and it usually takes medication, which is interesting.
Yeah. It was crazy because before I've tried to put on thick stuff on my fingernails so I wouldn't be able to bite them.
That's right.
And I've tried all that stuff. And it's a little thing, but it's the craziest little thing. That's
spiritually
just like,
speaking, it's not.
It's something that changed that I noticed that was something that I was like, why don't I do that anymore?
That is weird. That is a rich spiritual bubbling up from this story that I didn't expect, in the idea that when you truly broke it open and said, ask God to move in, there are no doubt various, and I am 100% certain of this, sort of levels of demonic presence in our world that is all around us, and I can totally see what you're saying in that that tension, that anxiety, or whatever. Usually that takes some time to get out, but an onrushing of the presence of God in you. I hear people talk about instantly and forever no longer having a desire to drink when they drank.
Yeah,
uncontrollably.
When I look back at it, it's like I said, it gives me like anxiety. It's like, how did I do it? Like, why did I put myself through that? But staying in it, doing what you're doing, surrounding yourself by the right people, not getting off track, not letting that 1 week where you miss your accountability group turn into 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Go to the Bible. Bible's everything I try to figure out and struggle with for about a week before I'm like, what does the Bible say about this? I'll just ask Siri or Google, just what does the Bible say about this?
Yeah.
And there's like 15 scriptures that'll pop up, and it's just like, why didn't I do this to begin with?
And you can get down a good rabbit hole on that.
All the answers are right there.
Yeah, Siri. Right?
Google. Yeah.
Well, hey, man. Times like this are fun for me, and we talk through your story and all those things, but all that I see is somebody who went through his own version of the crap we have to go through to get to a place of desperation, and you did. And it's so interesting, that last part about some of your addictive behaviors like vanished, and that's not what you were praying about necessarily. It was just trying to give yourself over to him, and you did, and you live in a faithful way now. And I think what we talked about early on is that having the perspective of the truth, knowing that God is not just another thing on the shelf, but he is the creator of the shelf and all the things on the shelf, and he exists above and beyond that. He wants connection with us. And that when we just go and grab and do that and try to be as close to him as we can be, it pleases him, and he will reveal himself to us, and he'll pour himself into us, and he poured himself into you, and he has. And when you realize those things, the why changes and the priorities change, and then you go to sleep with a great sense of fulfillment, and you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And you get to where you're like, not only okay with that, but kind of looking forward to it, because it's going to be way better than what your controlling plan might have looked like. But
it changed my heart, and my heart changed my mind.
Yeah, you can see it, and it's what you do. I think you're living for it now, and it's a cool thing to see. And I think that's what struck me when we met a couple months ago, and I'm really excited about what's going to happen in your future. I hope we remain friends and continue to catch up with each other on text and see each other at events and things like that. Absolutely. And I may even come back to Auburn sometime. I don't know, man.
You're gonna have to come check out a game.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. A Lee Scott game. That's where you guys coach. So no, that sounds like fun. I need to see Tim and see how you guys are doing it here, and I would love to see your culture with your group too.
Yeah, even to have you like share with the boys too. Yeah, that'd be great.
We got how much time you got, man?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but hey, Anthony and Tara too, for jumping in. You're a huge part of all the things that have gone on here. It's not his life; it's your life. You two are one, and it's clear to see that. And I just appreciate you guys carving out time and sitting down doing this.
Yes, sir. Not a problem.
Anthony's story is similar to many people who have found success. Without healthy roots in Christ, it's just too easy to let wealth, fame, status, or success in other forms become our identity and where we lay our trust. And when we do that, we strip God of his rightful place. Sometimes he has no choice but to remind us that only he is eternal. Everything else can, and often does, vanish in an instant. So what do we do? I think Anthony would say, to give God the highest place now, far above success, and engage in this world with humility. Jesus says it beautifully in my favorite scripture, in Matthew 6:33, when he says, "But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you." God grabbed Anthony in a powerful and profound way in that hospital bed and in the months after. He now truly lives in perpetual joy, and you can hear it in his voice and see it in his face. Thank you for joining us today on A Stronger Faith. For more episodes like this one, to recommend a guest, or to support this work, please visit astrongerfaith.com. Until next time, we pray for peace, humility, and a stronger faith for you and those you love.